And we're back. Oh, interesting. There's something playing in the background. There we go. Oh man, that's so cool. That is the first time. Oh, I know what I'm getting. I am getting an echo. There we go. Turn this off. Right. This is a lesson that I've learned again and again, which is when you go live, you never want to have your browser open to the page where you're going live because immediately you're going to get a 20-second delay on your stream. It'll all of a sudden start playing in the background and you'll be able to get this echo in your ear of yourself. So today, welcome to the show. Welcome to the live stream show. Today we're talking about introverts. And I just want to self-confess, I identify as an introvert. I definitely go back and forth. Like you see me on these live videos, you see me in public places looking, open and eager to show my face. But the truth is, that I can be a very shy person. And the other truth is that I go back and forth between being on, and I find it takes an enormous amount of energy to gear up and do these kinds of presentations. And then when I'm off, I really need to spend some time recharging and regrouping and getting my energy back. And I admire the people who are able to draw energy from crowds and draw energy from large events and draw energy from being on social media and being really active. But that's not me. That's not, if I'm in a big event that's lasting, 3 days, by about the middle of the second day, I kind of hit a wall and I have to recharge. And, if you're here and that resonates with you, say something in the comments like, yeah, that's me. I'm with you on that. And so here's the thing. We've all been told as introverts that in order to be successful in anything we do, and particularly if you want to be successful with your work or successful in your business, that really the only way to do that is to be and act like an extrovert, is to be and act like some of the great business heroes that we see who are out there bigger than life, showing up all over the place all the time, talking all the time, being on social media. And for most of us, we're like, well, if I were to act like that, I would have to try to be something that I am not. And you'd be forcing yourself to be, to pretend to be something that is really not your true nature. And so I wanted to explore this issue because the truth is that several of the most successful people in business actually are introverts. I mean, you take the case of Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, both of those guys, very successful, no denying, and they're both introverts, or J.K. Rowling, who is the author of the Harry Potter series and, one of the most, if not the most successful author on the planet who's alive today. She's super shy, and she tells a story that when she was just getting the ideas for the first Harry Potter book, and she was on a train ride, and she wanted to write down all her ideas as they were streaming through and channeling, she was too shy to go and ask somebody to borrow a pen so she could jot down these ideas, And yet, look, here she is, super successful. So I wanted to explore this issue, and I've invited on the show today Jen Jones, whose specialty is helping people, mostly women, who are introverts, sort of discover and take advantage of the hidden talents that actually can make them very successful. And this is what we're going to explore today. So if you're like me and you have this shy side and you have this thing of like, oh my gosh, what do I have to do to get myself out there? Do I really need to be, out in the same way that some of these big extroverts are? Or is there another way for me to go? This is going to be the episode for you. So let's hit that intro and start the show. Oh, and I got to hit the right button here. Let's see. Ta-da! Recorded live in Boston, Massachusetts, this is the Livestream Show. In a world full of underexposed entrepreneurs, the Livestream Show is your gateway to a global community of livestream pioneers who dare to go live and create something special and unexpected, which could only happen because it was live. I'm your host, Brad Powell. Let's get on with the show. All right. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me. I love seeing the Boston up there since I'm also from Massachusetts.
Right. The skyline is always fairly stunning. It gives me this sense of like we really do live in a beautiful place in a beautiful city. And you're living just north of Boston, isn't that right?
West of Boston.
West. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Northwest, you know. All right. So let's start, from the beginning in terms of tell a little bit about your own experience and your own interface between, yourself, finding yourself like you do this work now in coaching, but you're also working in real estate. And, as a realtor, a lot of people can relate to this. A big part of the job is meeting with people and building relationship with people. And that may not come naturally to people who are feeling like I'm not the most outgoing person in the world. So just tell a little bit of your story about how have you overcome some of these challenges?
Well, it's been 17 years of working on it for sure. And when I first started in real estate, it really was because I sold my own house. So it wasn't that great. And I was going to become this great real estate agent until I realized that I actually had to talk to people and cold call and knock on people's doors. And I was like, that just doesn't feel right, until I was like, you know what? I'm just going to talk to my family and friends first, because that's like the safe place. And over the course of 5 or 6 years, as I had little kids too, I built my real estate business on relationships. And it just evolved over the course of time because literally I did not want to pick up the phone and make a cold call. And I definitely didn't want to knock on someone's door. I will admit, when expired listings were a thing, not in this market here in 2021, when we had expired listings, I was told, you know what, just put a packet together, go knock on someone's door, talk to them, give it to them. And I was like, well, I could just leave it for them and like run really fast back to my car and like leave before they answered the door. So there's been some bumps in the road, but what I realize is when you have family and friends and clients and then past clients and more referrals, it becomes a lot easier not to have to cold call or now online leads, calling them, trying to be the first one to get in the door. And as a real estate agent, I just decided that relationships mattered the most to me. And I didn't need to be like everybody else in real estate. And there are actually a lot of introverts in real estate. You would not know that until you looked around, was like, that person's pretty quiet. I bet you they're an introvert. And they may not be coming out to all those networking events or showing up where they don't know people. But what I have found that I have gained skills over the years that have given me the opportunity to realize, like, you know what, I am somewhat of a social introvert, that I don't mind going out to networking events. I don't mind big events. You were talking about, 3-day, these long events. And I'm like, I hope you had your own hotel room. So I've learned over the course of the years is that we can go out and do those things, but we also have to have a plan to retreat back if we needed to. And having your own hotel room has been definitely something that has saved a lot of energy and probably some friendships too, because there's been some times I've shared rooms with people and I'm like, never again. So
yeah,
that's how it came to be. Connect and Elevate was birthed almost a little over 2 years ago, because I kept having people come up to me saying, hey, how are you everywhere? I just want to go home and go to sleep, especially if it was like an evening meeting after they've worked all day. And, how are you not exhausted? Just all these things. And what I realized, it took me a little bit to realize, is that the people coming up to me saying, I see you everywhere. How do you do it? We're all introverts.
Right. Right. So, okay, well, okay, so this sort of begs the question, how do you do it?
Hmm.
you know, Here I am, I'm going to say I'm an introvert, and I'm coming up to you going, well, how do you do that? I mean, absolutely, the hotel room, going to many events, I often, like I have other people that I know who are going to be there as well, and they'll reach out and say, hey, do you want to share a room? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that because I know, like, even in the middle of the day, I may just say, okay, look out, I need to go like take a nap, or I just need to go and be in my own space by myself. And I can do that for like an hour, and that's enough. That's all it takes. And then I can go back and have the energy again and go out and hang out with people. So what are the things that, there's sort of two things that I'd like to explore here. And we can start with the first one, which is, what are the things that you've developed in terms of yourself, in terms of skill, that have allowed you to be more outgoing?
So I call it the exit plan. So, is to have things in place already, especially for networking events. It's not so much one-on-one. For myself, I actually gain a lot of energy with the right people when I meet one-on-one with people. But it's really having an exit plan. It's being able to plan ahead and say, okay, if I'm going to go to this event, where's the bathroom? Where's a place that I could sneak away to? Visualize before you go, walk through the door. And then lastly, it's, even if you just set one goal that I'm going to meet one new person today and I'm going to have a conversation with them and I'm going to follow up with them. Most of the time you pick the right people, some of the time you don't, but that's okay. If you walk away just meeting one new person or just building a deeper relationship with someone that you already know, that has been what, probably like the number one thing that has gotten me through networking events and just events in general.
Yeah, I really like that. I mean, that's something that I've used frequently, particularly if I'm going to an event that's, far away and remote, so that I'm literally, when I'm getting on the plane, I'm imagining, okay, I'm going to this big event. There's going to be tons of people there. The, you know, the danger is going to be like, I'm going to be trying to run around and meet so many different new people or trying to get so many new contacts or something. And I try and put that all aside and literally have the intention of, I'm going to make one new friend. That's it. And if I do that, like, this will be a super successful experience for me. And that's all I'm sort of putting myself open for. And the truth is, my experience has been that usually when I attend a conference like this, that is what happens, that I come away and I've met someone and we've had a chance to hang out and really get to know each other. And I've come away from the experience feeling like, oh, I've just made a new friend. Like, this is really great. And
it's usually, most of the time, I say 99% of the time, it's like the right person. It's like that person that you needed to meet, which is
right.
really amazing. And I think just our energy, as we're visualizing, this person and saying that we're going to meet this one new friend, like you said, it's pretty amazing to see at the end. You're like, oh my gosh, like, it feels like I've known you for the last 15 years.
Yeah, right. So when we're doing these kinds of things, like, what do you think? There's a lot of aptitude that introverts have that extroverts do not.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the things that you've found that are like innate to your nature that actually, give you an advantage or give you a leg up over the extroverts?
So Extroverts like to meet people and move on, meet people and move on, meet people and move on. And just to kind of take from what we were just talking about is introverts love deep connections. They love those relationships where they can get to know people on a very deep level. And we're good at that. We're good at asking questions. We may not be good at sharing things about ourselves until we get to know that person. But really, it is nurturing relationships. We can meet new people, we can nurture that relationship, and bringing people together. So it's all kind of all into one. I have seen time and time again where introverts, where you would not expect them to be bringing people together for collaborations, summits, helping each other out. Like if I have something going on, I know that I have my greatest fans who are also introverts ready to post on social, send an email to their list. Just they're ready to continue to give to that relationship. They're not just going to meet me, take my card, and never never follow up. Introverts are good at follow up if in fact they don't need to pick up the phone. If they can send you an email, that is even better. So we aren't that, I say we, and I'm generalizing, we're not that good about picking up the phone unless we know people really well. And even then, we have to have a very compelling reason to pick up the phone to make that phone call. But it's really bringing people together and developing and nurturing some deep relationships are just, those are, I call them introvert gifts. They're gifts that we have that extroverts do not have. They have to really work at that, where that comes very naturally to us to get to know people really, really well.
Yeah, I think the most obvious example is extroverts are really good at talking, whereas introverts are really good at listening. And
Correct.
the extroverts are out there, they're great, like they're great on stage, they're great, on video, they like to present, they like to expound, they like to talk, they like to share all their ideas. And whereas an introvert is much better at listening, and in this context of like doing live video and having an exchange and a conversation like we're having, the listening is probably one of the most valuable skills that you can have, both with in a situation like this one where you have a guest on, or even when you're live and you have an audience and there are people who are commenting, and you really want to be listening to your audience. And this is the kind of thing, like when you're mentioning about the follow-up and whether or not you're going to reach out, to have a call with someone. As an introvert, absolutely. Like I am not down with cold calling. Like I just don't do it. However, I don't need to, because in this way of marketing, in this way of meeting people, I can be on a live video like this, or I could follow up from an event. And in those situations, I know that I've had a conversation with someone. If someone's commenting on a video and I carry on a dialogue with them, and even after the video's done, we get on messaging and we're having a little chat about what we were talking about, the idea of inviting them to a call is really natural because we already know each other and we already have a reason to continue the conversation that we started. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, like, in the realty world, this is probably really important, listening to your clients, listening to both people who are selling a home and people who are buying a home. Like, how have you been putting that skill to work?
Whew. So listening and deep thinking, I'll add that as something else. So it is really difficult for me I can listen, but it's difficult for me to, on my feet, like be able to answer people. So sometimes even for example, I did a listing appointment earlier this week and he asked me for my opinion about something. I'm like, kind of have to think about that. Can I get back to you? And, and I've been doing this for a long time, but I also don't want my clients spending money where they don't need to. And I really need to think about it. And so as an introvert, sometimes we have to think, and we are deep thinkers. We have great ideas, usually at 2 o'clock in the morning for that person that we talked to earlier in the day. And so I really believe that listening, and I love that you bring up, the live video, is that I think introverts are amazing at Facebook Lives. I know that some people are adverse to them. Other people are really confident and, bringing in guests, even just being live themselves and listening. You can see, and I talk about having a producer. I need a producer. You can see the comments and the questions and really listening to the people, because that's why we're here. We're here to offer information so that we can help someone. And if we're just talking and talking and talking and we're not listening to what people need or the questions that they have, or just even just, hey, yeah, I'm an introvert and I'm exactly like that. Just affirmation that, oh my gosh, there's someone else out there like me. But being able to listen really is a skill, and it's also innate in an introvert to listen. Sometimes, though, we get caught up in our own dialogue where we're really trying to listen to someone, but then we're trying to think about how we're going to answer a question if it comes up. So we just have to, that's more of a skill that you have to practice at.
Yeah, oops, hang on. I got to get back to I don't know what happened here. Just a second. Bring us back to here. There we go. Yay.
The stage.
Right. Speaking of needing a producer, I'm wearing all the hats. So what I was going to say is this live video thing is great for conversation. And the people on the introvert side of the spectrum can be really good at not just having a surface level conversation, but actually going deeper and having more meaningful things to talk about with whoever they're engaging with. And the same is true for engaging directly with your audience when you're live. And the other thing that I'll say is that I've noticed as a contrast is that while extroverts want to be the center of attention, that's the tendency, and we're speaking in generalities here, but I think that's generally true. Introverts don't want to be the center of attention. What they prefer to do is to create. And I think live video, as an example, is a really interesting venue and medium to enable yourself to be a creator, to be creating something really powerful and meaningful, and yet not necessarily be the center of attention.
Right.
And, like for instance, one of the people that I've worked with, she started doing a live video series, but the way she chose to do it was to find two colleagues to co-host with. So the three of them go live together and they can have more of a conversation and it can be less formal. And then they will bring on a fourth person as the guest they can all talk to. But it takes none of them end up being the center of attention.
Right.
Takes the pressure off, makes it much easier.
I think I said at some point to you was, I actually, love this conversation style because I think it gives us an opportunity to show our expertise. But I love it because it gets to showcase and spotlight someone else and how amazing they are. And so I feel like it's this partnership, and, having someone on with you and you're just having a conversation just, makes me warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is, it's a nice medium. And in this time of not going out to large events, and in this period of time where we haven't been able to meet in person with lots of people, this particular medium is a really easy way to do it. And a lot of people are getting used to it simply because they've had to be on Zoom calls and Zoom meetings in a way that they never really needed to before. And so this has become much more universal and much more natural way for us all to interact. And now, introverts delight, like I'm sitting in my home office bedroom.
Yep.
And I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to put my shoes on. Like I'm sitting here barefoot and I can be in the privacy of literally my own bedroom and interact with people who are, tuning in from different parts of the world. So there's that.
Well, I got my slippers on because it's cold here. So
okay. Right, it's chilly out. Today I was out riding my bike and it's definitely chilly.
Yep, winter is approaching.
Right. So, all right. So we're getting close to the end of our time together. To wrap this up, what would you say, just by way of encouraging, because there's a lot of people out there who have been feeling, especially at the end of the last, whatever it has been, year and a half, of being closed in. And on the one hand, you could look at it like, well, this has been sort of the introverts' time of delight, where they haven't had to go to their office and interact with people in a way. So they're preferring to work from home, which is great. Me too. And we all, like, there's this other side of like, well, what's happening with our business in the meantime? And there's a real need to put yourself out in some way so that you have interaction that works for you, that actually is meaningful. So what would you say by way of encouraging the introvert world to, use the things that are natural and innate to them to be more present in the world?
Ooh, all right. So, I want to say one thing, and then I'll get to that is, if you have, gotten comfy in your own home, which is amazing because we can talk to anyone anywhere in the world. I had a conversation with someone in Australia a couple weeks ago. That was a big time difference. But what I want to say to you is, you know what, those people that you have been in contact with that you can actually get in person at a coffee shop if you feel comfortable, I would actually encourage you to go out, get out of your own space. I think that what I didn't realize was I really needed to rejuvenate my energy. And usually that's done by yourself as an introvert. But there's those really close relationships that when you're on Zoom, it's very different than when you're in person. You really connect with someone on a different level. And I found that I did a couple coffees, not back to back, but back to back days. And I was like, oh my gosh, I used to push people to Zoom before, these times. And now I'm like, I want to go and meet people in person. And I'll drive an hour and a half to go do that. So I would just encourage you that those people who maybe are your biggest fans, maybe they're clients of yours, and if they do live close by and you feel comfortable going out in person to meet with them, I would absolutely encourage you to do that. I think that we are in a time as introverts where we've succeeded up to a certain point, and now how do we expand our thinking into, let's meet in person, or how else can I rejuvenate my energy? Because I know that for me, and going into the winter here in New England is not great with it getting dark at 4:30, but I want to talk a little bit about your energy, where it can be so draining to be on Zoom, especially if you're not putting white space in your calendar. And what else can you do to rejuvenate your energy on a deep soul healing level that I feel like we haven't had the opportunity to do because we've been living life the way that we have been living? And, how can we rejuvenate more than just that hour nap that you were talking about, where we can give more and also receive more?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, one of my things that I do as a ritual is every morning, even now when it's really quite cool out, I get up and I go for a bike ride. I ride, to the next town, I go up to Lexington on the bike trail and then turn around and come back again. And that's like a daily ritual. And I listen to, my favorite podcast on the way, and I'm getting, lessons for life from some inspiring person, and I get to clear my head and all of that. And I find that's a really good energy boost sort of first thing in the day. And the other thing that I've done, that I've started doing on a regular basis this past year, is that I take on experiments, creative, like I like to create. I'll make up an thing, like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing. So last week I called the office of Ecamm Live, which is the company that makes the software that I use to produce these live streams. And their office is just up in Amesbury, Massachusetts, which is not far away. It's about an hour drive from where I live. And so I met the person who's the marketing director there, and I said, I saw something that you've just created a whole new studio in your office. why don't I come up and you can give me a studio tour? So,
That's awesome.
so last week I drove up to Amesbury, on a Wednesday, and we met for about an hour and a half. And I just brought my camera and I followed her around while she was doing the tour. And then I'm going to bring her on live in a couple of weeks, and we're going to, I'll interview her live, but then I'm going to use those clips that I took when I was visiting with her as part of the live stream. And this is just a project to be something fun, but it gives me a chance to go and meet somebody in person.
Yes.
And go to I'd actually never been to Amesbury. So it was, it's like, wow, cool little town, Amesbury. Who would have thought?
That's amazing. So I like that how you called it an experiment. So, sometimes we get stuck in our little box, or at least I do, and you don't think outside the box, but that's a great idea. And meeting people, it's such a different vibe than Zoom. And I don't want to poo-poo Zoom or whatever platform you're using, but meeting with people, even as introverts, it just gives you a different kind of energy when you walk away, especially if you're meeting with the right person.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great. So if people want to follow up with you, I know you do coaching,
Yes.
helping people like do all the things that we've been talking about today. So if somebody wants to hook up with you, how do they do that?
All right. Well, I'd like to just plug real quick my new book that's coming out, Intrapreneur.
So exciting.
Right. It's very exciting, and really just taking the principles that we talked about along with some others, just, getting it out into the world, and shining the spotlight, with my group of amazing women helping me launch that. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can go directly to my website at www.connectandelevate.com. You can book a time to just chat with me, or we do have our free energy toolkit, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, but we sprinkled some of that energy in there, and it's just so important for introverts. So if you just want that free workbook to use, and any comments that you have, feel free to let us know.
Cool. Awesome. So I'll make sure that the links to those things are in the comments and in the show notes in the podcast. And thank you so much, Jen, for joining today.
Well, thank you. It was such a great conversation to have, especially with another introvert.
Right. And for the rest of you guys who are still here, thanks so much for tuning in. If you want to get the entire archive of the Livestream Show series, you can just go to thelivestreamshow.com, and it's all there. You can subscribe to the podcast version of this, which will give you access to all the upcoming episodes right on your phone, so you never miss another episode. And more than that, better is to join us live. And we go live every Tuesday, Eastern Time, 11 a.m. We'll be here again next week. And until then, so long, everyone. Goodbye.